In the heart of a galaxy far beyond human comprehension, where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds against an endless velvet expanse, there existed a world unlike any other. This planet, known as Lissara, was a realm of breathtaking beauty and enigmatic wonders. Its skies were painted in hues that shifted with the rhythm of its twin suns, casting ever-changing patterns of light across landscapes adorned with crystalline forests and rivers that flowed with liquid starlight. The air itself seemed alive, carrying melodies that whispered secrets of ancient civilizations long forgotten by time. At the center of this extraordinary world stood the Celestial Citadel, a palace forged from living crystal that pulsed with an inner luminescence. It was here, within these iridescent walls, that Queen Seraphina ruled her people with wisdom and grace. Her presence commanded reverence not through fear or power, but through an aura of ethereal beauty and profound intelligence that left even the most hardened warriors awestruck. Standing at 6 feet tall, her form was both alien and mesmerizing. Her skin shimmered with opalescent scales that caught and refracted light, creating a dance of colors around her. Her eyes, large and luminous, held galaxies within their depths, capable of seeing truths hidden from ordinary beings. The Queen's connection to her people transcended mere leadership. She embodied the very essence of Lissara itself. Through her veins coursed the life force of her world, allowing her to communicate with the land, manipulate energy fields, and understand the intricate balance that maintained their ecosystem. Yet despite her immense power, Seraphina carried herself with humility, often walking among her subjects, listening to their concerns, and sharing in their celebrations. Her voice, when she spoke, carried the resonance of distant stars colliding, yet it possessed a warmth that could soothe the most troubled soul. Among the many mysteries surrounding the Queen was her peculiar fascination with Earth and its inhabitants. Unlike other alien species who viewed humans with either disdain or indifference, Seraphina had developed a deep appreciation for humanity's resilience and capacity for growth. She had spent centuries studying their culture, their art, their conflicts, and their triumphs. In particular, she found herself drawn to their concept of love, a complex emotion that defied logic yet drove them to achieve incredible feats. This interest had led her to establish a unique relationship with Earth, one that remained carefully concealed from both planets' populations. As the story unfolds, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in this interstellar narrative. The Queen has recently appointed a new human guard to her personal security detail, a decision that has raised eyebrows throughout the court. This human, unlike his predecessors, possesses qualities that intrigue Seraphina beyond measure. His selection wasn't based solely on physical prowess or tactical expertise, though he excels in both areas. Rather, it was something intangible, a spark in his eyes, a way of carrying himself that suggested depths yet to be explored. The atmosphere in the Celestial Citadel crackles with anticipation as word spreads about the Queen's growing interest in this particular human. Courtiers whisper behind delicate crystalline fans, speculating about the implications of such unprecedented attention. Some view it as merely another phase in the Queen's eternal curiosity about Earth, while others sense that something more profound is at play. The Queen herself moves through her duties with a subtle change in demeanor, her usually serene expression occasionally giving way to contemplative gazes directed toward her new guard. In the grand halls of the Citadel, where gravity danced differently than on Earth, Captain Elias Thorn stood at attention beside the Queen's private chambers. His presence was both imposing and controlled, every muscle in his 6'2" frame coiled with readiness. Trained since childhood in Earth's most elite military programs, Elias had earned his position through a combination of natural talent and relentless dedication. Yet nothing in his extensive preparation could have prepared him for this moment. Standing guard for an alien queen whose very existence challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. Elias's journey to Lissara had been anything but conventional. Born on Earth's Mars colony during its early years of expansion, he had grown up surrounded by tales of cosmic exploration and first contact scenarios. His parents, both xenobiologists, had instilled in him a deep respect for alien cultures while maintaining a healthy skepticism about official narratives. This unique upbringing had shaped Elias into someone who approached the unknown not with fear, but with cautious curiosity. When Earth's government secretly established diplomatic relations with Lissara, Elias had been among the first volunteers for the exchange program, though he never imagined he'd end up serving directly under the Queen herself. His current assignment came after an incident that still haunted his memories. During a routine patrol near Lissara's atmospheric boundary, Elias had single-handedly thwarted an assassination attempt on the Queen's life. The would-be assassin, a rogue member of the royal family, had employed advanced cloaking technology that rendered him invisible to all but the most trained observers. Elias, noticing a minute disruption in the air currents, a skill honed during his time on Mars, had acted purely on instinct. The resulting confrontation had lasted mere seconds, but had demonstrated a level of combat proficiency and quick thinking that impressed even the Queen's most seasoned guards. Now, as he maintained his vigil outside her chambers, Elias couldn't help but reflect on how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. The weight of his responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders, not just the protection of an alien monarch, but the potential consequences his actions might have on intergalactic relations. He had quickly learned that serving Queen Seraphina required more than physical strength or tactical knowledge. It demanded an understanding of Lissaran customs, politics, and the subtle nuances of their society that often eluded even their most trusted advisors. The Queen's previous guards had typically served for decades, becoming fixtures in the royal court. But Elias had been chosen after only 3 months on Lissara, a decision that had sparked whispers throughout the palace. Some speculated that his rapid promotion stemmed from his heroic act, while others believed the Queen saw something special in him, something that went beyond mere competence or bravery. Whatever the reason, Elias found himself thrust into a role that required him to navigate not only the physical challenges of protecting royalty, but also the complex social dynamics of an alien court where every gesture carried meaning and every word could alter destinies. As days turned into weeks, Elias began to notice subtle changes in the Queen's behavior toward him. During their daily interactions, she would linger slightly longer when issuing orders or make small adjustments to their schedules that placed them in closer proximity. These observations weren't lost on the court, where rumors spread faster than light through a vacuum. Some nobles viewed his presence as a threat to traditional power structures, while others saw potential advantages in cultivating a relationship with the human guard who seemed to hold the Queen's favor. The testing began subtly, almost imperceptibly. At first, it manifested as minor deviations from established protocols, requests made at unusual hours, sudden changes in planned routes, or unexpected appearances in parts of the palace typically off-limits to guards. Each challenge pushed Elias to adapt quickly, forcing him to rely on his instincts and the limited knowledge he had accumulated about Lissaran customs. The Queen's eyes, those vast pools of cosmic mystery, would follow him during these moments, assessing his reactions with an intensity that made his skin prickle beneath his uniform. One evening, as the twin suns cast their final rays across the crystalline spires of the citadel, Seraphina summoned Elias to her private observation deck. The room, perched high above the palace grounds, offered a panoramic view of Lissara's night sky, a tapestry of stars so dense they appeared as a solid ceiling of light. Without warning, she dismissed his fellow guards, leaving them alone in the vast chamber. "Captain Thorn," she began, her voice resonating with celestial harmonics, "I wish to test your understanding of our ways." Before he could respond, the floor beneath them shifted, transforming into a perfect replica of Earth's moon surface. "Show me what you would do if I were threatened here." The scenario unfolded rapidly, with holographic enemies materializing around them. But it wasn't just his combat skill she tested. Each enemy carried different cultural symbols, forcing Elias to make split-second decisions about which threats were real and which were illusions designed to provoke cultural misunderstandings. His responses revealed not only his tactical acumen but also his growing comprehension of Lissaran values. When he chose to disable rather than destroy an opponent bearing sacred Lissaran markings, Seraphina's expression softened, though she said nothing. These tests grew increasingly complex, blending physical challenges with psychological and emotional trials. During a simulated diplomatic crisis, she observed how he negotiated between conflicting parties, noting how he balanced respect for Lissaran traditions with Earth's diplomatic protocols. In another instance, she created an elaborate illusion where he had to choose between saving her or preventing a catastrophic environmental disaster, a test that probed his priorities and moral compass. Each time, Elias responded with a combination of calculated precision and genuine compassion that left even the Queen's closest advisors impressed. Yet perhaps the most revealing test came during a traditional Lissaran ceremony. As part of the ritual, participants were required to share a deeply personal memory through telepathic projection, a practice that made most humans extremely uncomfortable. When Elias's turn came, instead of resisting or providing a superficial memory, he shared a moment from his childhood on Mars. Watching his parents work together to save a dying alien plant, their faces illuminated by the red glow of the Martian sunset. The authenticity of his choice, coupled with his willingness to be vulnerable before the entire court, marked a turning point in how the Lissarans viewed him. Through these trials, Seraphina watched not just his actions but the spaces between them, the way he processed information, adapted to unexpected situations, and maintained his integrity under pressure. She noted how he treated everyone, from the highest noble to the lowliest servant, with consistent respect and genuine interest. Most telling was his ability to learn from each experience, incorporating new knowledge into his approach without losing sight of his core principles. These observations stirred something deep within her, a feeling she had long suppressed in her duty as queen, a yearning for connection that transcended species and tradition. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Queen Seraphina and Captain Elias Thorn evolved into something neither had anticipated. Their interactions, once strictly professional, began to carry subtle undercurrents of mutual admiration and unspoken understanding. During their daily patrols through the crystalline corridors, Seraphina found herself lingering in conversations with Elias, seeking his perspective on matters ranging from interstellar diplomacy to the philosophical implications of quantum consciousness. His responses, always thoughtful and sometimes surprisingly insightful, revealed a mind that operated on multiple levels simultaneously, a trait she recognized as uniquely human yet profoundly compatible with her own complex nature. The Queen's growing affection manifested in subtle ways that would have gone unnoticed by anyone less attuned to her moods. She began adjusting her schedule to coincide with his shifts, finding excuses to walk through sectors of the palace where he was stationed. During council meetings, her gaze would often drift to where he stood at attention, her antennae, delicate structures that expressed her emotions, vibrating in patterns that betrayed her increasing interest. These vibrations, normally reserved for intimate communication among her kind, became more pronounced whenever Elias demonstrated exceptional insight or displayed his characteristic blend of courage and compassion. Elias, for his part, found himself equally affected by their developing relationship. The initial awe he felt in the Queen's presence had transformed into something deeper and more nuanced. He noticed how her presence seemed to harmonize with the palace itself, her movements creating subtle shifts in the ambient light that followed her like a living aura. During their encounters, he became increasingly aware of the way her eyes seemed to see beyond his physical form, penetrating to the very essence of his being. This awareness didn't intimidate him but rather filled him with a sense of being truly seen and understood, a rare experience for someone who had spent much of his life hiding behind layers of military protocol and personal reserve. Their connection reached a pivotal moment during a rare meteor shower that illuminated Lissara's skies with cascading streams of cosmic energy. Tradition dictated that the Queen observe such celestial events from her private balcony, accompanied only by her most trusted advisor. To everyone's surprise, she requested Elias's presence instead. As they stood side by side, bathed in the multicolored radiance of falling stars, Seraphina began sharing aspects of her life that few had ever heard. She spoke of her ascension to the throne at a young age, the loneliness of carrying her planet's consciousness within her, and her fascination with humanity's capacity for hope in the face of adversity. Elias listened intently, responding not with empty platitudes but with personal stories that mirrored her experiences in unexpected ways. The intimacy of these moments created a palpable tension between them, one that neither could, or perhaps dared, to acknowledge fully. Courtiers began noticing how their interactions carried an electric charge, how their proximity seemed to generate visible ripples in the palace's energy fields. Rumors spread like wildfire through the citadel, ranging from speculation about a formal alliance between their species to more scandalous suggestions of romantic involvement. Yet amidst the gossip, both Seraphina and Elias found themselves grappling with feelings that defied easy categorization, a mixture of duty, desire, and destiny that neither their cultures nor their positions had prepared them for. The culmination of their unspoken connection arrived unexpectedly during the Festival of Eternal Light, a celebration marking the anniversary of Lissara's formation. As tradition demanded, the Queen participated in the ceremony of reflection, a ritual where she communed with the planet's consciousness through a sacred pool of liquid starlight. Normally, this was a private affair attended only by high priestesses and select members of the royal family. However, this year, Seraphina insisted that Elias remain present, citing security concerns but knowing full well the true reason lay elsewhere. As the ceremony progressed, Seraphina's form began to undergo a transformation that left even the most experienced courtiers breathless. Her opalescent scales shimmered with increased intensity, casting prismatic patterns across the chamber's crystalline walls. Her eyes, already vast and luminous, expanded until they seemed to contain entire universes within their depths. The air around her vibrated with harmonic frequencies that resonated through every cell of those present, creating a symphony of pure energy that seemed to suspend time itself. Yet through this display of raw power and divine connection, her focus remained fixed on Elias, her gaze piercing through the veil of cosmic energy that enveloped her. When the ritual reached its climax, Seraphina stepped forward, her movements creating waves in the liquid starlight that rippled outward like solar flares. Her voice, when she finally spoke, carried the weight of countless generations and the tenderness of a single heartbeat. "Captain Thorn," she began, her words forming patterns of light that danced around them. "In my centuries of rule, I have encountered beings of every conceivable form and intelligence. Yet none have moved me as you have done." The admission hung in the air, charged with significance that transcended mere romantic confession. It was a declaration that challenged the very foundations of Lissaran tradition and interstellar protocol. Elias stood rigid, his military training warring with the overwhelming emotions coursing through him. The weight of the moment pressed against his chest like the gravity of a neutron star, making each breath a conscious effort. Around them, the assembled court held their collective breath, the usual hum of Lissaran society silenced by the unprecedented nature of what was unfolding. Even the crystalline walls seemed to pulse with anticipation, their usual rhythmic glow erratic and uncertain. The queen's antennae, normally graceful in their movements, trembled slightly, a sign of vulnerability that no one present had ever witnessed before. Seraphina continued, her voice weaving through the charged atmosphere like threads of stardust. "Your species speaks of love as a force that conquers all obstacles, that bridges impossible divides. I wish to understand this, to experience it." She extended a hand, its delicate fingers trailing streams of pure energy that spiraled toward Elias like living constellations. "But know this, to accept this path is to embrace a destiny that neither of our worlds is prepared for. It would require sacrifices beyond imagining and courage beyond measure." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the soft chime of crystalline structures responding to the heightened emotional energy. Elias's mind raced through the implications of her words, each possibility more staggering than the last. He understood that this wasn't merely a personal matter. It was a crossroads where two civilizations, two entirely different ways of existence, stood poised to either converge or collide. The weight of representing not just himself but all of humanity pressed upon him with crushing intensity. Around them, the court reacted with a mixture of shock and wonder. Elder statesmen exchanged worried glances, their traditional robes rustling softly as they shifted uncomfortably. Younger nobles whispered behind their hands, some with excitement, others with concern. The high priestesses, guardians of Lissaran spiritual traditions, watched with expressions that ranged from disapproval to cautious acceptance. Even the palace itself seemed to respond to the tension, its crystalline structure emitting low-frequency vibrations that resonated through everyone's bones. As Elias struggled to process the magnitude of the Queen's declaration, something remarkable happened. The liquid starlight surrounding them began to shift and swirl, responding to the emotional turmoil radiating from both parties. Patterns emerged in the glowing pool, images of Earth and Lissara orbiting each other, of humans and Lissarans standing side by side, of futures yet unwritten. The visions weren't projections or illusions but manifestations of potential realities, each one more compelling and terrifying than the last. Through it all, Seraphina waited, her divine form trembling with a vulnerability that made her seem more human than alien, more mortal than goddess. The moment stretched into eternity, each second heavy with possibilities that could reshape the course of two civilizations. Elias's next action would determine not just his fate but potentially the future of interstellar relations between Earth and Lissara. Every eye in the chamber remained fixed on him, every breath suspended in anticipation of his response. The air itself seemed to thicken, charged with the potential energy of decisions yet to be made and paths yet to be chosen. In the charged silence that followed the Queen's declaration, Elias Thorn did something that would be spoken of in hushed tones throughout the galaxy for generations to come. Instead of responding immediately to Seraphina's confession, he took a deliberate step back, his movement creating ripples in the liquid starlight that spread outward like shock waves. The court gasped collectively, interpreting his action as rejection, but those who knew him best recognized the gesture for what it truly was, a moment of profound consideration, a space carved out for careful thought in the face of overwhelming emotion. Reaching into the breast pocket of his uniform, Elias withdrew a small, weathered object that had accompanied him throughout his service. A simple silver locket containing images of his parents on Mars. Holding it aloft, he spoke words that resonated through the chamber with unexpected power. "Your Majesty, before I can respond to your declaration, I must honor the teachings of my own world. The locket began to glow, not with alien energy but with the warm, familiar light of Earth's sun, casting soft shadows across the crystalline walls. What happened next defied all expectations. Elias activated a neural interface embedded in his temple, a device previously unknown to Lissaran technology, that projected not just images but complete sensory experiences into the chamber. The air filled with the scent of Martian dust, the sound of his parents' laughter, and the visual memory of that fateful day when they had saved the alien plant. But this was merely the beginning. Layer by layer, he revealed aspects of human culture that had shaped his understanding of love, sacrifice, and connection. Scenes from Earth's history, artistic masterpieces, scientific breakthroughs achieved through collaboration, and moments of human compassion that transcended barriers of race, creed, and nationality. The Lissaran court watched, transfixed, as their preconceptions about humanity shattered and reformed into something far more complex and beautiful than they had imagined. Seraphina's divine form trembled, not with rejection but with the overwhelming realization that Elias was offering her not just his individual self but the collective soul of his species. Her antennae vibrated in patterns of astonishment as she absorbed the depth of human experience being shared with her people. Then came the moment that truly shocked everyone present. Elias, demonstrating a mastery of Lissaran customs that astonished even the most learned scholars, began translating these human concepts into terms that resonated with Lissaran sensibilities. He drew parallels between Earth's ecosystems and Lissara's living crystal structures, between human emotional complexity and the harmonic frequencies that defined Lissaran communication. With each comparison, the barrier between their species seemed to dissolve, replaced by a bridge of understanding that neither had believed possible. The liquid starlight responded to this unprecedented exchange by rising from its pool, forming intricate patterns that combined elements of both worlds. Crystalline structures began to grow and transform, incorporating organic shapes reminiscent of Earth's flora while maintaining their alien essence. The very fabric of the palace seemed to breathe with new life, adapting to accommodate this fusion of cultures. Courtiers found themselves involuntarily reaching out to touch the changing walls, their traditional robes brushing against surfaces that now pulsed with hybrid energy signatures. Most astonishing of all was the reaction of the high priestesses. These guardians of Lissaran tradition, who had initially shown signs of disapproval, now stood with tears streaming down their scaled faces. Tears that caught and refracted light in ways that created miniature rainbows. They began chanting ancient verses that spoke of convergence and unity, their voices harmonizing with the new frequencies filling the chamber. Even the most skeptical nobles found themselves swaying to the rhythm of this unprecedented cultural synthesis. As the display continued, Elias maintained his composure, though sweat beaded on his forehead from the strain of maintaining the neural interface for so long. His uniform, designed for combat and protection, now served as a canvas displaying the evolving patterns of understanding between their species. The silver locket in his hand had transformed from a personal memento into a symbol of interstellar connection, its glow intensifying with each passing moment. The implications of what was unfolding extended far beyond this single chamber. Throughout the palace, Lissarans paused in their activities, sensing the fundamental shift occurring in their society. Crystalline communication networks transmitted not just information but the emotional resonance of this historic moment, causing ripples that would eventually reach every corner of their world. On Earth, though unaware of the specifics, sensitive instruments detected fluctuations in subspace communications that hinted at something monumental taking place light-years away. Seraphina, her divine form now stabilized by the harmony being created, watched Elias with eyes that contained entire galaxies of newfound understanding. What had begun as a test of loyalty and compatibility had evolved into something far greater, a demonstration of cultural diplomacy that transcended traditional boundaries of species and tradition. The Queen's initial declaration of love had been answered not with simple acceptance or rejection but with an offer of something far more profound, the opportunity to build a bridge between worlds based on mutual respect, shared values, and the courage to embrace change. The transformation of the celestial citadel continued to unfold in ways that defied both Lissaran and human understanding. The crystalline structures, once rigid in their perfection, now pulsed with organic rhythms that mirrored the beating hearts of those within. Walls that had stood unchanged for millennia began to grow translucent vines of living crystal, their formations resembling Earth's most delicate flowers while maintaining their alien essence. The air itself seemed to hum with a new frequency, a harmonic convergence of two distinct forms of consciousness learning to coexist and enhance each other. Courtiers who had initially resisted this unprecedented union found themselves drawn to the transformed spaces, their traditional robes brushing against surfaces that now responded to their presence with gentle pulses of light. High-ranking officials who had spent centuries mastering the intricacies of Lissaran politics discovered new dimensions to their understanding as they navigated these hybrid environments. The very protocols that had governed their society for generations began to shift, adapting to accommodate perspectives and practices that had once seemed incompatible with their way of life. Throughout the palace, evidence of this cultural synthesis manifested in unexpected ways. Communication devices, once purely technological constructs, now incorporated organic elements that allowed for more nuanced expression of emotion alongside factual information. Security systems evolved to recognize not just physical threats but emotional distress, creating a network of support that transcended traditional notions of protection. Even the food served in the royal dining hall transformed, combining Lissaran nutritional crystals with Earth's culinary arts to create dishes that nourished both body and spirit in ways neither culture had experienced before. The impact extended beyond the physical realm into the very fabric of Lissaran society. Traditional ceremonies began incorporating elements of human ritual, while Earth's diplomatic protocols adapted to include Lissaran concepts of harmonic resonance and energetic alignment. A new language emerged, blending the musical tones of Lissaran communication with human linguistic structures, creating a means of expression that captured the full spectrum of both species' experiences. This linguistic evolution proved particularly significant, as it allowed for the sharing of complex ideas and emotions that had previously resisted translation. Perhaps most remarkably, the changes initiated by Elias's actions began to influence the planet itself. Lissara's living crystal formations, long considered static monuments to the planet's consciousness, started to exhibit behaviors that reflected human creativity and adaptability. Forests of crystalline trees began to grow in patterns that mimicked Earth's seasonal changes, while rivers of liquid starlight developed currents that responded to emotional states rather than just gravitational forces. The planet's consciousness, once focused primarily on maintaining balance and stability, now embraced the concept of growth through diversity and change. These transformations rippled outward from the palace, affecting every aspect of Lissaran life. Educational institutions revised their curricula to include human history and philosophy alongside traditional studies of cosmic harmony. Artistic expressions evolved to incorporate both Lissaran geometric precision and human abstract expressionism, creating works that challenged viewers to perceive reality through multiple lenses simultaneously. Scientific research facilities began collaborative projects that combined Lissaran energy manipulation techniques with human technological innovation, leading to breakthroughs that benefited both species. The political landscape underwent perhaps the most dramatic shift. Council chambers that had once echoed with debates about maintaining pure Lissaran traditions now hosted discussions about integrating human perspectives into governance structures. Laws and policies evolved to reflect a more inclusive worldview, one that recognized the value of diverse approaches to problem-solving and conflict resolution. Even the most conservative factions found themselves adapting to this new reality, discovering that embracing change didn't mean abandoning their heritage but rather enriching it with new possibilities. As these changes permeated Lissaran society, they began to influence Earth as well. Though the full extent of the transformation remained hidden from humanity at large, those involved in the secret exchange program found themselves viewing their own world through new eyes. The success of Elias's approach demonstrated that cultural diplomacy need not involve compromise or assimilation, but could instead create something entirely new and more powerful than its individual components. This realization sparked a quiet revolution in Earth's approach to interstellar relations, one that would eventually lead to more open and authentic connections with other species. Back in the transformed chamber, Elias and Seraphina stood at the center of this evolving reality, their presence acting as a catalyst for further change. The Queen's divine form had settled into a new equilibrium, one that incorporated elements of human vitality alongside her celestial majesty. Her eyes, still vast and luminous, now reflected not just galaxies but the infinite potential of cross-species understanding. Elias, his uniform now adorned with crystalline patterns that responded to his thoughts and emotions, represented the perfect synthesis of his military training and his species' capacity for growth and adaptation. The liquid starlight, once confined to its ceremonial pool, now flowed throughout the chamber like a living entity, carrying fragments of both worlds within its currents. It formed patterns that told stories of past achievements and future possibilities, creating a living record of this unprecedented moment in galactic history. The courtiers, once divided in their opinions, now moved through this transformed space with a sense of purpose and belonging that transcended their previous roles and prejudices. As the transformations continued to unfold, Both Elias and Seraphina recognized that they stood at the threshold of something far greater than either had envisioned. What had begun as a personal connection had evolved into a template for interstellar relations, a proof of concept that demonstrated how different species could not only coexist but thrive through genuine understanding and mutual respect. The challenges ahead remain formidable. Entire civilizations would need to adapt to this new paradigm, but the foundation had been laid through acts of courage, vulnerability, and visionary thinking that had shocked everyone present and set the stage for a future that promised to redefine the very concept of civilization itself.